Okay, today we'll be making a hard apple cider. A couple things you'll need: either a cider package. This is Brewer's best brand, but you can get any brand, or if you want to just use a apple cider you got from an orchard, fresh apple cider works really well too. And then you also need sugar. This is corn sugar. This won't leave any off flavors. Sometimes your sucrose or table sugar will produce some off flavoring, but if you use corn sugar, that won't. So you'll need 2 pounds of corn sugar, and then this is 5.3 pounds of apple cider. This makes 6 gallons. I've only got a 6.5 gallon fermenter, but we're going to make about 5.5 gallon batch instead of a 6, just to make it all fit in there. And then you'll need your 6.5 gallon fermenter or carboy, a sanitizer solution. I've got 5 gallons of sanitizing solution with Star San. Star San is 1 ounce per 5 gallons. So I've got my stuff already sanitizing in there, which is my siphon here. And then you'll need to put your airlock in there too. This is a homemade airlock I just made. You can see my video on how to make that if you don't have one from the brew shop or something, like I didn't, but it'll work very well. So you want to sanitize that as well, and your stopper in there. And then I'm also going to sanitize my hydrometer, so put that in there to sanitize as well. And then after that's all sitting in there for a couple minutes, we'll transfer it to the carboy to sanitize the carboy as well. So that's all sanitizing right now. What we want to do is we want to start boiling some water. The directions say to boil about 1 gallon of water. Right now I've got about 1.5 gallons that I'll boil. So while that's going, we can kind of read the instructions here. So as you see, it says pour the concentrate, which is the concentrates in this package here, with 2 pounds of the corn sugar and 1 gallon of boiling water into the fermenter. And then you top up your fermenter to 6 gallons, or in my case 5.5 gallons, so I have enough headspace for it to ferment and not need a blow off assembly. And then after that, you just stir it up really well until all the corn sugar and the concentrate is dissolved into the water. And you pitch the yeast. Before you pitch the yeast, you're going to want to make sure your solution's below 75, 80 degrees. That way you won't kill the yeast, and then you just store your fermenter for 3 to 4 weeks. While we are waiting for the water to boil, we can measure out our 2 pounds of corn sugar. Cut the top open slightly. Then I just put a bowl on my scale and zeroed my scale up. And then just slowly pour in until you get 2 pounds. Like I said, this should be about half the package since this is a 4-pound package. Right there is 2 pounds of sugar. And just close up your remaining bag and keep it airtight, and so it's good for the next time. Now that the water's boiling, we can slowly add in the sugar. Keep stirring it as we add it in. You don't have to add it to the boiling water, but I'm just doing that to make it nice and easy for it to dissolve all the way. And just while it's still on the heat, you can lower the heat down so you don't burn the sugar. Just stir it around until it's all dissolved. Now that all the sugar is dissolved into the water, you can siphon out of this pot into your fermenter. once that's all siphoned off, you can take your siphon out. We didn't get quite all of it. So what we'll do is we'll put our funnel there. And pour the rest of it into the funnel. Okay, the next thing we need to do is take and put the concentrate into the fermenter. Take some pair of sanitized scissors and just cut at the top, concentrate. This has the yeast here, and there are all the instructions in the top of it. You can take out, they're isolated from the cider liquid. Now take and carefully pour the cider concentrate into the funnel. It is pretty thick, so it'll go kind of slow. Okay, and just let the rest of that drain in there. After that's all done draining, you need to fill the fermenter up to about 6 gallons. In my case, since it's only 6.5 gallon fermenter, I'm only going to go to 5.5 gallons to leave me a little bit of headroom to ferment. Take your water and pour right in the top of the funnel. Until you reach about 5.5 to 6 gallons of total volume. Okay, now we've got about 5.5 gallons, just over 5.5 gallons in here. So before I put my last little bit of water in there, we're going to take and do the sweetener packet. This is all personal preference. You can choose to take all the sweetener packet and put it in there, or just half of it, or none of it if you want a dry cider. I'm going to add about half of it. So what I'm going to do is go and dump in about half of it into the funnel there on top. And then finish off rinsing it just with a little bit of water just to get it all in there. After that, we'll take a gravity reading of the cider right before pitching the yeast, and then we will pitch the yeast in there and let it sit for 2 weeks. Now to test the gravity, you're going to want to get your siphon. Put your siphon in the beer, still make sure it's sanitized. And then get a siphoning vessel, just a smaller vessel that you can put the hydrometer in and still see the reading. So you just put your hose hose in the smaller vessel and siphon the cider into it. So you don't want to fill your vessel all the way up, since you'll need a little bit of room for your hydrometer. So now take your hydrometer out of the sanitation bucket and then slowly put it in here, just to make sure you're not going to run out of room. Now spin it and drop it as you go in there. That gets all your air bubbles out from around it. So after spinning it, it's got several different indicators on here. What we're looking for is this gravity number here. If you can see it, we have about one. Let's see if I can turn it for you. About 1.048. Just double check that by moving it up again and spinning it. A couple more times just to make sure that it comes out to the same number. And it looks like it's going to. Yep, 1.048. So after you're done with that, take your hydrometer out. Put that back in your sanitation bucket to clean it really quick. Okay, now that we got done taking the hydrometer test, we can finish out by pitching the yeast. But one thing you want to make sure of before pitching the yeast, that your temperature on your carboy is below 80 degrees. On here you can't quite see it, but it's still up there at the 90-degree mark. And so I've got it in an ice bath right now to try to cool it down before putting in the yeast. If you try to pitch the yeast at too hot temperature, it'll kill it. 90 degrees probably is fine, but I just like to cool it down to about 70 to 75 degrees before pitching the yeast. So that'll be a few more minutes before this is cool enough to pitch the yeast. Now after about an hour, I've got it finally cooled down to approximately 75 degrees, which is cold enough to pitch the yeast now. So what you're going to do is you need to grab the funnel out of your sanitized bucket, put it here where the thermometer was put at, and then take your yeast packet here, which is just premium cider yeast. Go and grab your scissors out of the sanitized bucket as well. It's very important that everything is sanitized from this point on, because nothing's warm to kill any bacteria that might get in there. Okay, now you take your scissors and cut the yeast packet open. You don't have to cut it all the way off. Then just pour it in the funnel here. Get as much of the yeast down there as you want, as you can. And then take our hydrometer test from earlier and just wash all the yeast out of the funnel here into the fermenter. There's still just a little bit of yeast in there, so I'm going to put just a little bit more water. Try to rinse just a little bit more of the yeast out of there. You don't add too much more water because that's going to throw your gravity off that you measured. But just that much isn't going to hurt it. Okay. And then what you want to do is just put your hand over here. Shake it up pretty good. And then get your airlock out of the fermenter. Dry off the stopper so it sticks really well, and stick it in here, and now store in a cool dry place for about 7 days.